I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to gloss over it. I'm just going to come right out with it. Dr. Fauci is a maniac.
I hadn't counted on this, but I must say you worked out beautifully. People are terrified of you. I'll have carte blanche to create the perfect society. My society.
You know, if Dr. Fauci were your lover, I realize you'd really have to stretch your imagination and probably, depending on who's listening right now, your gender preferences. But if Dr. Fauci were your lover, could you imagine having a guy that one day tells you he loves you, the next day he kills you, and yet shows up at your funeral crying and, pledging his undying love for the person he just killed? Fauci, one hand he comes out and defends the president, that the president acted properly, that he did not in any way hide information from the American people, and he defended the president against the Bob Woodward book. But of course, that's because Fauci's own position has changed.
Dr. Fauci, coronavirus, of course, has been in the news so much. People are worried. Should they be worried? Are they worried unnecessarily? And what should they be doing?
No, I don't think people should be frightened. I mean, the risk right now, today, currently, is really relatively low for the American public. But that could change because what's going on outside of the United States, particularly obviously in China and in other countries in which there are travel-related cases, that this could evolve, and I think it would be unrealistic to deny that. This could evolve into a global pandemic, which would then have significant implications for us. So although we don't want people to be worried now, I think we need to realize that this could change. So right now, don't worry about it. Be more concerned about influenza, which is going into a second peak for the season. Be more concerned about influenza, which is going into a second peak for the season.
Fauci, who then decided coronavirus was the perfect opportunity to jump on and create a pandemic and hysteria. After all, he does hold the patents to a few of the potential vaccines, so there's a lot of money to make here. Why, he even came out over the weekend and said it won't be until at least the end of 2021 till we can return to full capacity indoor activities like movie theaters, the plays like in Broadway, and concerts. 2021, the end of 2021, the vaccine needs to be out and in circulation for a full year. It was Fauci who jumped on the British bandwagon with 2 million people will die if we don't go into immediate lockdown. Who is this guy? Did you ever actually, I want you to be honest with me, did you actually even hear of this guy or know of his existence prior to February of 2020? Seriously. I mean, I knew about him back in the 80s when he absolutely was a train wreck disaster that crashed into the AIDS epidemic. Everything that he said we had to do then, it turned out that the entire medical community, he became a laughingstock. I remember visiting an AIDS patient in the hospital. I had to put on pretty much a hazmat suit. I had to put on full headgear and a face mask and gloves and surgeon's attire. I had to scrub up and sterilize, and then I was walked through a little like mini decompression chamber and then into the ICU room where the person was, and there was oxygen, and this poor woman lay there dying. And I was there to pray for her as a pastor. And I couldn't stand it anymore. I ripped that stuff off. I put my hands on her, which is exactly what Jesus would have done. I prayed for her, and then I kissed her on the forehead. When I went to leave, medical people came running from everywhere. I needed to be quarantined. I needed to be disinfected. You're not touching me. And I left. And eventually, the medical community realized that all these Fauci precautions of wearing all of this stuff was ridiculous, like walking around in a life-size condom. You know, I'm sure like you, I go on Facebook and I get all these ads that pop up. because I post a lot of things about masks, guess what? The algorithm in Facebook, I get fed. I get fed mask advertisements. But the ones that crack me up are these plastic shields now, especially the ones that fasten around your neck and you wear it out like so. Am I the only one that thinks, what they go to the vets? Looks like that cone you put on a dog's head to keep him from licking his own genitalia after he's had an operation down there. This is what human beings are now wearing to go out and about. Oh, I'm safe. I can't get coronavirus because I've got the funnel over my neck. You look like a moron. And only a sadistic lunatic could come up with this kind of stuff and espouse it, because Fauci is saying, we wear goggles. Really? Really? That's unbelievable. He has been wrong every step of the way. The lieutenant governor of Texas called him out for it.
We've had 2,424 people die, and New York has had over 31,000. Even California has had almost 3 times as much as Texas. And remember, Laura, those 2 states have been locked down the whole time while we have been open. So locking down doesn't work. If it did, those 2 states would be doing better than Texas. Fauci said today that he's concerned about states like Texas that skipped over certain things. He doesn't know what he's talking about. We haven't skipped over anything. The only thing I'm skipping over is listening to him. You know, you have a lot of doctors on your show from day one. Your doctors have been right almost every time, and he has been wrong every time on every issue. I don't need his advice anymore. We'll listen to a lot of science, we'll listen to a lot of doctors, and Governor Abbott, myself, and other state leaders will make the decision. No thank you, Dr. Fauci.
Now, I've walked you through the whole history. He originally was working on coronavirus under the Obama administration. When it was discovered what he was up to, the Obama administration said, you can't do that on American soil. We don't do biowarfare. So he shipped it out to Wuhan, China. Bum, ba-dum, bum. We, the U.S. government, you and me, the taxpayer, paid for the laboratory in Wuhan, China, to experiment with corona. In 2017, Fauci said emphatically that before the end of the first presidential administration of Donald Trump, there would be a, quote, surprise pandemic. Ta-da! Now, how did he go from initially saying that the flu would be worse for us to deal with, then all of a sudden, coronavirus? Because I think initially, Fauci wasn't quite sure if he could sell it. And he understood that maybe, just maybe, this thing wouldn't have the deadly, frightening impact that he wanted it to have, but it worked so well in scaring the Euros out of their mind that he was then, within 2 weeks of saying, don't worry about face masks, just live your life, enjoy your life, the flu is worse. 2 weeks later, we needed to shut everything down and you needed to walk around in a life-size, over-the-head condom or you were going to die. And he keeps bringing up second wave and third wave and now 2021. He's got vaccines to sell. He's got patents to make money off of in perpetuity, and he's got family to take care of. Do you understand? Do you get? I won't even call this COVID anymore. This is now the election infection. Write that down. That's a good one. The election infection. You know, my son is in a military academy. He tested positive for corona. They quarantined him and about 20 other guys. He didn't have any symptoms. Because I know that works that way for me. Whenever I don't have any symptoms, I know I've got something. You understand how ridiculously stupid we are right now? The level of fear and hysteria. Again, I go everywhere now without a mask, and I get dirty, nasty looks. I even had somebody challenge me on it in church, in the pulpit. Make fun of me because I'm wearing a mask. You do what you got to do to take care of you. I am a conservative, but I'm also a libertarian type of conservative in that you do you. If it's within the legal and moral laws, you do you. And if wearing a mask makes you feel safe and protected, then wear one. But don't give me grief for not wearing the stupid thing. And if you're wearing one, what do you care if I'm not wearing one? You're protected, right? And if you're not, then the mask is pointless. That said, looking at Fauci, what a corrupt, vile individual. He has been on the boards of Big Pharma, traveling the world talking about the up-and-coming sneak surprise pandemic, and who's on those Big Pharma boards with him, who has traveled the world with him and spoken alongside of him. The enemy from within, Mike Pence. I've told you this before. He's the enemy within. By the way, this is not anything new. This is stuff we've covered before. This is review, people. You need to be reminded. In fact, let's give you a real reminder.
Thank you, Mr. President. U.S. intelligence is saying this week that the coronavirus likely came from a level 4 lab in Wuhan. There's also another report that the NIH, under the Obama administration in 2015, gave that lab $3.7 million in a grant. Why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China?
The Obama administration gave them a grant of $3.7 million. I've been hearing about that. And we've instructed that if any grants are going to that area, we're looking at it literally about an hour ago, and also early in the morning. We will end that grant very quickly, but it was granted quite a while ago. They were granted a substantial amount of money. We're going to look at it and take a look, but I understand it was a number of years ago, right?
So you are.
When did you hear was the grant was made?
2015.
2015.
So it goes back to 2014. The U.S. government decided, based upon certain virologists at that time, saying that, look, there's no justification for this kind of research. There's a potential for it to cause harm, cause a pandemic. So there's no justification for us to do this type of research. So the government passed a moratorium in 2014. Fauci approved approved budgets to be monies to be sectioned for this type of research. So basically, and I'm getting really, every time I think about this, it gets me really flustered because I'm so angry that he basically broke the law. He more than broke the law. He created this entire cascade that we're seeing with the world shutdown was created by this initial aspect back in 2015. He broke the law. He went against government moratoriums. He took taxpayer money and he funded research that has now led to the COVID-19. In 2017, he was documented at Georgetown University saying that there will be a pandemic that this presidency will face, that this term will face. How did he know that in 2017 that something was going to happen in 2018, 19, or 2020? You can't predict the market from 3 days from today, what's going to happen. How did he know that there was going to be a pandemic? He stated the president of this president will face a pandemic.
There's no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak.
I'm going to say this. I think that I've seen some petitions going around. I know Dr. Shiva said that Fauci should be fired. I think that's the nicest thing that could be done to Fauci. I think he should. He's a criminal. He's broken the law. He's gone against the government. I mean, to me, that seems like it's a traitorous thing to do when the government has passed a regulation and he's at one of the highest levels in the NIH. He's got a directorship at the NIH, and then he breaks the law, he breaks the moratorium, and then funds research against something that could potentially cause harm throughout the entire world, and he's in collusion with a foreign government.
Fauci is a lunatic. The president needs to stay far, far away from him, and you need to stop listening to him. I promise you, Dr. Scholes and Dr. Pepper know what's better for your health than Dr. Fauci, a guy that most of you, if you're truly honest, would admit you didn't even know who he was until February. And now all of a sudden, he's Jesus Christ in the flesh in second coming. Wake up. Hey, that's it for a Monday rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Smack the bell so that you get notification of all of my rants. And you've also got to click the word all. Give me a thumbs up and a like. Spread this video faster than COVID.